Yo, 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 yo. It's your
What
boys.
is going on?
What's going on, family? What's going on, Bex? I ain't got no pink. I looked high and low to see if there was anything, and all I came up with was a manly gray. Yo, what is going on, everyone? You know what it is. Tuesday night means you're ready for your favorite internet personalities to tell you how to live your life. It's your boy Steve, real name, no gimmicks, joined by my employers, Cincy Star, that's DJ Cincy Star, the revolutionary himself, and then the Queen Empress, heir apparent to all things beautiful, the Pink Princess Bex. We will not be joined by our lovely co-host Leilani. She had a thing to do, work related, but she's here with us in spirits, and combined we do make dope dynamics. And man, we got some juicy topics for you folks tonight. In fact, I wonder if this is going to be our last show. How the hell are you two?
Wait, what? You said last.
I'm joking. It's not going to be our last show.
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know me, I'm ready to work, man. I threw up all my weakness over the weekend, and just got to get it out of your body sometimes. Real men vomit up their problems. I stuff everything down into a tight little ball until it leans on my liver, and then it forces me to vomit out my weakness. So I'm doing great.
I'm doing, yeah. It sounds like a fair-skinned problems, but that's another topic.
That is a first world problem indeed. Shout out to everyone over on Green Room, Courtney Monroe, Shahid, and Ashby. How are y'all doing? And shout out to everyone that's up in here on Twitch. Laney. And if y'all want to sound off on Twitch so I know who's here, let me know. So folks, how was your week? How's everything going?
Week's been good. Today was a good day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any crazy plans for the weekend? Anything like that?
No. I'm going to sit in the house and rewatch Gossip Girl all damn day. That's what I'm going to do.
That's one of Mantis's favorite shows, so you might be able to.
Really?
Yeah, you might be able to rope him in on that one. How about you, since anything going on this weekend?
Oh, nothing too crazy. Typical schoolwork stuff. Sobriety this weekend, hopefully.
Oh, hey, some lifestyle changes. Okay, get a little too turned this week. This past weekend.
Yeah. I think I pushed myself to the limits. I'm not that young anymore. Still young, but I ain't not like it used to be.
Hey, welcome. That's what I'm talking about, man. You started getting closer to these latter day years, and you're just like, you know what? I'm just gonna relax and watch some Discovery Channel. But let me not bore the people, folks. We got some topics tonight. We're talking about gun laws and the impacts or lax gun laws in certain states and the impacts that has on those areas, those local areas, and this what the statistics say. I think you'll be surprised by some of the findings. We are talking about the talking stage, which is an old phenomenon where I didn't have to do much research on this. The talking stage is where you either it starts right before you get sent to the friend zone or you level up to the next boss fight. And then we'll be talking about boundaries, one of my favorite things to get into. Do we have them? Do we need them? How do we implement them? And we're still gonna, if it's okay with you guys, we'll still honor Jovi's topic, which is that's the one where I feel like I can't pass up on it. Are women allowed to be lazy and fat? And coincidentally enough, she is not here to talk about this and leaves us to discuss this volatile topic. And then we do have an honorable mention. We'll see if we can get into it. Obviously, new law being signed into a new bill being signed into law at Georgia State in regards to critical race theory being banned in the schools of that state. So we'll see if we can get there. Well, who wants to kick it off? What topic you guys want to start with?
You know what? I'd like to talk about the gun control thing here to jump out. So, this is an article that I found on CNN, and it basically says that there was a recent study that just got published by the leading nonprofit organization that focuses on gun violence prevention. And according to their research, there is a direct correlation in states that have weaker gun laws to also having higher rates of gun deaths, including homicides and suicides, as well as accidental killings. They go on to mention, kind of the tests they did, how they judged each state, age, background checks, waiting periods to get weapons, et cetera, accessibility essentially. And so they found states like California, Illinois, and New York that have very strong gun laws to be essentially the leaders in, low rates of gun related violence.
Oh. Wait, so I was going over the article, and this thing it kind of lands like you just described on a few different topics. Let's get into the suicide portion. So read that one more time for me, since in regards to the suicide portion.
Let me see if I can pull this back up real quick.
Because the reason I find that interesting is the states with the most lax gun laws. When you look at a place like California or Chicago, like Illinois, I would think. All right, let me be the one. When you're in the forest, it seems like that's what you see the most. And when I lived in Chicago, I got to tell you, man, I've heard gunshots at night when I lived, growing up in Harlem, but I ain't never heard machine guns until I moved to Chicago. Shout out to the 77th Phillips, Southside Chicago, Terrortown, as they called it. And it is a state that has some interesting gun laws and in response to carrying permits and things like that. But I feel as if though this article is alluding to a certain political demographic when talking about gun laws, because this is a huge talking point for conservatives that Democratic run states have the worst crime rates. And I want to be able to defend my friends in blue, right? I am an independent myself, but there are instances where I want to defend them. I don't want them to just become another talking point for the Ben Shapiro's of the world. But that is one statistic that they hold true and they laud over. And I find it interesting that something like suicide is impacting this, because I don't think I've ever heard that brought up in the conversation, right? I've always heard about, inner city violence. I've heard about, domestic shootings, between couples, things of that nature. These are things that are typically brought up in that conversation. But the suicide thing blows my mind. But I guess it makes sense, because I can't assume, I mean, this is just me speaking without any data, that every person that commits suicide via way of gun was legally able to obtain these guns. And that kind of throws a wrinkle in the whole thing.
Yeah, I was interested to see that they brought that up in this article as well. But I think the reason that they bring stuff up in what do I want to say? Articles that, like you mentioned, are geared towards one community is because they can lump something like, and I don't want to say they're the same, but like the high profile mass shootings and suicides, and make them seem like they're a bigger portion of the actual gun violence that goes on in the community. Because in actuality, both of those things are very small in the overall, impact of gun violence.
Yeah. No, and it's true, man. It's so okay. Let me try to be consistent here, right? I do believe in a person's right to own and carry, right? I believe that if you have the you have the right to do that, to protect what's yours, to protect your land, self, and family. But I believe that with the caveat of they should be legally obtained, right? The registration thing I have mixed feelings on, because I'm like, man, if the government does go evil, do I want them to know that I'm stockpiling, a war chest in this door right behind me, that I got stuff that'll push you right out of your Air Force Ones if you come on this property? Do I want them to know that? Not all the time, right? But at the same time, it's one of those give and take things in society. I was having a conversation with someone a few years back. What would be the need to have an AR-15, right, for hunting purposes? And I'm like, well, I don't know if I need it for hunting purposes, but if there's someone burning a cross out in front of my house, not that that's going to happen in the state I live in, but anything's possible. I want to make sure that I can get everyone the attention they need in that moment. I don't want anyone to feel left out, Bex. You know what I'm saying? So, but lax gun laws in more quote unquote liberal states, man, I always feel like there's something nefarious going on there as well. And I will go full conspiracy on you. Population control is one of those things that falls in my mind, right? You arm people who are in a destitute state, impoverished, and you'd be surprised to see what happens. But that's what I have to say on it. What do you think, Bex?
Where do things like school shootings come into play, like within this category?
I personally think they come in there because that's what the media jumps onto and latches onto. We could turn on the news tonight and see 3 or 4 stories about someone getting shot and killed in the city, but it'll be a dead story by tomorrow morning.
Right.
With the school shootings, let's be honest, they happen in a different demographic where the rest of shootings happen. So it garners more attention, because you could look at it and say, well, it comes as more of a surprise because they happen in nicer neighborhoods, yada, yada, yada. But, it's one of those things when you hear 6 or 7 people, like what just happened in Sacramento,
right,
versus hearing one guy that, happened to be in the wrong place at the street. Like, people don't care the same.
Get me hip.
At least towards the demographic that I think they're trying to sell stricter gun laws to.
Okay, I must have missed it. What happened in Sacramento?
I don't have the full story pulled up, but I think this was like Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
Someone had went in a public place. I think I can't remember exactly where it was, but 6 people ended up getting shot and killed. It was a group of, I want to say 3 people that were doing the shooting, and ended up finding everybody, which they usually do, but
it's crazy. I just want to point something out. I think that's the first time, to my recollection, that they've attached the term mass shooting to anything to do with a group of people of color. That is like, when I saw that, wow, this could be my internalized prejudice, or just the way I view it. When I hear mass shooting, I always assume that this happened in an area that is predominantly white, with a white assailant being the perpetrator. And that's not to say that I'm not saying all white people are prone to mass shootings. I'm just saying statistically that's what we've seen over the last few years. And when I saw that it was a black dude, and this was like black people that got put down, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, they usually don't attach that language to it, because remember at the beginning of COVID, in the George Floyd situation, death of George Floyd, someone went to a funeral in Chicago and laid down a bunch of people, and they referred to it as gang violence. So that's just something I want to point out there. But go ahead, Bex, you were about to make a point.
Oh no, I was just listening. So the shooter was black? Okay.
Yep.
All 3 of them? You said it was 3 people involved.
I don't remember if I heard that all 3 people were shooting, but there were 3 suspects and they all were detained or arrested, I should say.
And you say they're classifying it as a mass shooting.
They did, which is odd, but it was also at like the same time that this report got released. Incidentally. it it's tough to talk about, like, but I guess the reason that I brought this up, to preface this, I've lost two really good friends to gun violence. One through, like a senseless murder, and one to suicide. But for the few people that do know me, I love guns. I like guns. I think they can be had responsibly. I don't, really see a big issue with the types of guns people own. I mean, it can be scary to think about, especially for people who not been around them. Um, but the issue to me is that when you bring up something like gun laws in particular, you tack only gun laws and you say California, strictest gun laws in the US, and you give it data that says it's the safest state in the US as far as gun violence goes. That sounds crazy to me because if you pull up an article that says most dangerous cities to live in, you see places like Stockton, you see places like Oakland, or even Sacramento, like in the cities. Illinois is on the same wavelength as they're even stricter with gun laws. But then you have the south side of Chicago, where
Right.
and that's what I want. Like, there's a bigger issue than gun laws. When I go to the mall, regardless of all these school shootings and mass shootings, I don't fear at any point that something is going to happen to me. When you go into the city, we've been around people like they didn't go to the store and buy the gun. Like,
Right.
they're gonna have it regardless. 90% plus of gun owners use their guns responsibly. So there's bigger issues, and particularly when you start to look at the places where the majority of gun violence happens, inner cities. The reasons that you can deduct that people actually do gun violence. There's some crazy folks. I'm not going to deny that, but when you start talking about poverty, struggling, um, lower education in these areas where kids are born with very little hope and continue to be raised into adults with very little hope or desire to change because that's all they know, that's a bigger issue to me than the laws themselves.
Repeat that last part. What's the bigger issue for you?
Like addressing the reasons that people commit gun violence, the reason people do street violence in general, which is makes up the majority of gun violence, which is things like lack of education, growing up um, in poverty, where you're basically born into a hopeless situation, and by the time you're adult, most of the times you're still in that same hopeless situation. You don't know anything else because there's no one teaching you anything like that. We're giving you opportunities not to have to do things like, in the streets, essentially what I'm trying to say.
I understand that. In this article, did they speak of, did they mention like any solutions they think should come into play?
I mean, the article, it basically just speaks about increasing the gun laws. Like that's the statistic they're holding on to. States with higher, more strict gun laws have less gun deaths. But again, like I said, you can pull from all those states that they said were the pinnacles, California, Illinois, and New York, and go to the cities in those states and get a completely different vibe than that. So to me, it felt skewed. Like it felt like I could say the same thing. Well, lower education correlates with gun violence. So I mean, and I think that is more realistic of
Yeah.
the situation.
You're on mute, Steve.
Sorry. I think that's a good point, man. And I think it also goes in hand with the fact of like when you look at a place like Chicago, hell, you look at a place like Cincinnati. Don't be fooled, folks. I drove through there and I was like, I'm gonna keep driving because it gets cracking there too. But when you look at these situations, man, where there's a lot of violence within the inner city, obviously a lot of these guns are shipped in, right? These guns aren't being. We're talking about choppers. You know what I'm saying? There's no way you legally bought a MAC-10 to spray up a block. I think for me, the solution has always been, it starts within. If we're just talking about our community, like it starts within the community, right? Holding each other accountable, not accepting this as a social norm, right? I think one of the hardest things we deal with within the Black community, sometimes is it is what it is type of mentality. And I'm like, no, it don't have to be what it is, right? We have to get past the point of apathy, and maybe not apathy, but to past the point of accepting it. You know what I'm saying? I think we become anesthetized in many situations where too many people say things like Cincy just said about losing friends and losing loved ones. So I think it starts there with, this is going to be an unpopular sentiment here, but you may have to tell on someone, right? You may have to tell on a family member. You may have to take a stance and say that this is not appropriate, that little kids get shot in this stuff. You may have to culturally say, you don't speak for my people with your behavior as being a part of a gang or whatever subculture or harmful group. And then it starts externally as well. Like if they wanted to clean up gun violence, and let's just start with the inner city, they would have smashed it by now, right? Someone's profiting from this. Someone profits from the guns being brought into the community because they have to be sold to the people using it. Someone got that AK to someone. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you want to deal with that, I don't know if it's necessarily stricter gun laws so much as it may be, but also harsher punishment for the people who are providing the guns, right? And that's where I think the NRA gets really nervous in these conversations, and everyone tries to make it a Second Amendment talk. I ain't trying to take your guns. What I am trying to do, however, is make sure that someone who shouldn't have a MAC-10 doesn't have a MAC-10, right? I'm trying to make sure that illegal guns that were legal guns at one point don't get deserialized and then pushed out into the streets. And the only way to do that is the same way you deal with drugs, right? You can bust low-level offenders. You can bust the perpetrators. But until you start putting some real heat on the people providing these things, it's just going to keep happening, right? Because you have to choke off the supply.
What happens to guns that get taken away?
Well, they do a nice little get together in the community, and the cops come out and everyone brings their guns in and they take a photo, and then those guns are supposed to be decommissioned. If I'm going off of Mantis's worldview, which is nothing is true, can't confirm anything, I don't know what happens. They could just literally be taking those things right out the back door and be like, back onto the streets.
And that's like some scary, sinister shit to think about.
Yeah. yeah, absolutely. Especially when you see a gun that's been used in multiple murders, right? Like when you see a hot one that just keeps getting passed around inside of a neighborhood. But that's the only way I can see. Like it's got to be. You guys ever watch that show Rock? You remember Rock with Charles Dutton back in the day? And if you're not familiar with the show, for the listening audience, Rock was a garbage man, and that was the focal point of the show. Was he was cheap, but he was hardworking, and most of the stuff in his house he had found while he'd been picking up trash. And there was a lot of levity in the show. It dealt with his relationship with his wife and his kind of deadbeat brother and his dad who lived with him. But then one season it took a real serious turn where a drug dealer had moved into their neighborhood, and the drug dealer had basically set up shop and taken over everything. Right, and Heavy D had made an appearance, and he had gotten arrested. And this is where Rock and his wife came into their adopted daughter. I bring that up though because Charles Dutton's character Rock in that season did something that was like insane. He stood up to the drug dealer, and it wasn't just like sermons and stuff like that. Like he started a neighborhood watch. They were standing, if I remember the story correct, they were like standing outside of crack houses, calling the cops on dealers, and they had impacted the business so much that the dealer, you know, had to confront Rock, and they had this great monologue where Rock basically read him. You know, he's like, you can kill me. You have the power to do that, but it's not going to stop what I did here. And I think when it comes to gun violence, like in our communities, it's going to be some of that old school thinking. We're like, you're not going to take away what's most precious to us.
Do you think things like Neighborhood Watch, do you think that they're effective? Like, have you been in a community where there is like a Neighborhood Watch?
Yeah. It wasn't like a community I lived in, but it was a mixed bag community, and it was effective in the sense where it protected the people who lived in this immediate vicinity, but I don't think it had like the impact that you would hope to see, because everyone has to be, and I want to be frank about this. You know, you're risking something, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, it was dangerous then to call the cops. Now it's extremely dangerous to call the cops, right? Because everyone is on almost hypnotized by don't snitch. But I think they can be effective, but it can't just be a whistleblowing thing. Like, you have to understand you're walking into a dangerous situation, and you're going to be reporting on people who are probably close to you, you know, and then you're dealing with a broken system as well. So there's a chance you could report something and then that person can get out. Yeah. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Thank you for bringing the mood up on this one, Cincy.
Yeah, my bad. That's why I wanted to go ahead and get it out of the way.
No, I'm joking with you.
Go ahead and get it out of the way, but
no, go ahead.
I'm gonna go a little bit off the rails here. This is a conspiracy, but you know, some people might take it this way. And when you brought up drugs, this just reminded me, you can bust as many low-level people as you want. You'll never make a change until you bust the people who are really out here making moves. We know who brought the most dangerous drugs into the community.
Yeah.
Where do those guns go?
Yeah.
Right back into the community. I mean, it kind of feels to me, when, you know, I'm thinking about it right now, the same people that are legislating for laws are probably the biggest enemy, in a sense.
That's not a conspiracy theory. That's fact. Like, that's like, in my mind, that's as good as the gospel. Not, oh, well, hold on, let me pull that back before I get it. Let me pull that back. that I agree with you 100%, brother. It's what's really crazy though, if I follow that train of thought, which I agree, is that as these things continue to be circulated through the community, and you look at like the layered problem, which is gun violence, drugs, and all of those things, this is, and you let me know what you think, Cincy. Like, I always kind of look at things from the substance abuse view, which is, I can't stop. If I'm a heroin addict, I can't stop heroin from being sold. Like, I can put a dent in it, but I can't stop it. But I can stop taking it, right? And I can change my relationship with it. And sometimes I wonder what would happen if we changed our relationship with these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we changed our relationship with each other and how we approached each other, would there be as much of the shootings as we see? Because I just feel as if though, like, in 2022, as a black man, like, the best chance I have of making a dent in it is changing my son's minds, right? And like helping them to understand the value of life. And I think that life has been cheapened, and I think the system knows that, right? And I think they know that it's an uphill battle. And I think a lot of good people are beaten down. They're beaten down because they've been, you know, people who've been fighting this fight in the community for years, decades, outreach centers that have been doing this work. And I can't imagine how frustrated they are. I had a pastor on my show. His name's Anthony English, young dude. And he made a very good point. Whenever conservatives say, well, what about gun violence in black communities, black and brown communities? He's like, okay, are you saying that as to say that there aren't people who have not been out here risking their lives since these things started coming into the community, because there was an uptick, right? The level of firearm that came into the community has grown steadily since the 80s, right? The type of guns, the access to guns has grown. There are people who are going to watch this and get really mad with what I say, but I agree with Cincy 100%. The community has to be held accountable, but the system has to be held accountable. We have to find out who are bringing these high velocity guns, or any guns, and how are they getting them? Why is that not a part of the investigation, right? So after someone bucks down another man or another woman, or a child gets shot and he's about to do a bid, why aren't we trying to trace that gun back? And usually the answer you get is, well, now it's unmarked, it's really hard to establish it. No. You can figure out why I didn't pay my taxes. You can audit me. You have the resources and the full weight and power to do that. Where is the power into following where that gun came from? And I appreciate the gun turning programs. I'm not knocking it. I think that's all great stuff. But who is watching the Watchmen? Since he makes a good point, where you're saying like these guns are supposed to be broken down. Let's turn some energy towards who's bringing them into the community. And at the same time, don't get crazy like gun owners. This is at y'all. I love y'all. You have the right to bear arms, but we got to ask ourselves a question, like the thing that happened in Connecticut, where the little children got murdered, right? And the teachers, right? That guy owned those guns legally. So the question becomes, screenings, is it really an invasion into privacy? Or how comfortable do you feel knowing that all it really takes is a 48-hour waiting period, 30 days, I'm sorry, in some states, no background check in regards to your mental state? Why does that offend people? If I say, hey, can you just add this one thing in? Can we see if you have a history of mental illness, right? And how that might impact you. Has your mental illness impacted others negatively in a physical sense? And it's just like, you're a liberal communist. And they start freaking crazy. And I'm like, yo, whoa. Why can't we? Why? How does that screening infringe upon your freedoms?
Why are they offended by that? That's weird.
I don't know.
I think a lot of all right. So there are people that are going to be extreme on both ends. So even if you just suggest making a law more strict, like you said, the mental health check before you can get a gun, the people that are die hard are immediately just here, you're trying to take my guns away. And like you said, that's not the case. We just want to make sure that you should have it. Now, again, I don't disagree with there being strict gun laws at all. I just, I don't think that the gun laws are the key that's going to prevent gun violence. Like it's like we were saying, community issues are the actual problem.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think when I hear a lot of conservatives who claim to be of the Christian variety, and when they start asking questions about, well, if you do background checks, then that will impact my ability to have my Second Amendment right. And it kind of goes into this circular argument. Does the government have the right to know everything about me? And then it's like, well, it's a right, and you should be able to preserve that right. But at what point does it not be a right? You go to prison, you lose your rights, right? And we're all okay with that. Like, you go to prison for felony marijuana. You guess what you can't do? You can't own a gun, and you have no history of violence. So people in their vested interest can't see how that same thing can be applicable to, hey, if you did some time in a mental health facility because of certain behaviors and acting out in your mental health illness, should you still be qualified to have one? Right now, private citizens in good standing, keep your guns, but it's really and I try to be empathetic to this. I know that there are people who are gun owners, and the sole purpose of having a gun is to protect themselves from not only physical threats but tyranny. Right? There are people who really believe that, and it's funny because these are the same people who scream conservative. They believe that the government can go tyrannical, and at the same time they'll say, we need to trust the government, and America's the greatest country in the world. But why are you arming yourself? Well, I should have the right to just do that. But don't you trust the government? You're telling me I should trust the government. Why don't you trust the government in good conscience that they will lead appropriately and do things appropriately? Like, I don't know. I can't answer the question, Bex. Like, I know almost certainly I'm going to get hit up after this. And it's like, I don't think you really understand issues. Like, no, I understand issues. They're not that complex. It's just, we're not talking quantum physics. What are we willing to do to see if we can bring this to an end? That's not to say that I don't think people use mass shootings as a narrative to maybe lessen the, people's ability to own guns, but something's got to happen. All right. Something's got to happen. Now, if y'all got beef for what I said, email Cincy. All right. He picked this topic, and I had a battery in my back since you picked it. I was just like, ooh, because you can't make any headway on this, man. Because at the end of the day, trying to attempt to answer your question, Bex, I don't know how many people authentically feel like their guns are going to be taken versus how many people feel as if though it's my right and I don't care what happens, right? And I had a conversation with someone like this. I don't think people really care if children get shot down, because there'll always be but I should still have the right. And your rights aren't what we're talking about. We're talking about how do we decrease mass shootings in this country. Y'all not gonna solve that problem for me tonight?
No, I mean, it's an unsolvable problem at this point. Starts with the community, like you said, but like it can't just all be on us.
No.
For example, if we were to even attempt to do our part, work on the community, work on our mental health, self-educate, to increase awareness about the situation and attempts to prevent it, at some point, someone who has actual power needs to do their end of the deal too. And I think that's where people get frustrated, at least in the community, because it's like you said, the advocacy groups that are in the community have done this for 40 years. They're realistically have made no progress. The numbers are continuing to go up. So I appreciate them doing that, but it's because the people in the community give up, not necessarily the 10, 20 people that work at the agency, but
no, absolutely, man. It's not relevant until. But I can't even say that, man. Like, listen, when I was more militant, I was like, this won't be an issue until it hits the shores of certain demographics. But then when we see a mass shooting in Connecticut, heck, Columbine, right? More children. I think people forget how that children died, even though they were teenage age, right? And then I'm like, well, it's going to have to be babies. And then what happens? Babies get killed. And then you have people coming out of the woodwork saying it's a conspiracy. They were actors. There are people who literally, a friend told me this once, won't believe that happened, the shooting in Connecticut, unless they see the corpses of the children. And even then, they probably still wouldn't believe it, because the one thing they think is that it's all a conspiracy. Like Dave Chappelle said, we live in the age of spin, and no one wants to deal with the realities of these situations.
That's so dumb. I remember people saying the same thing about like the DC sniper, saying that like it was fake. And I was there. Like I was there when it happened.
Yeah. And it's it's insanity. But to the people who live in the communities impacted by gun violence, most frequently, I would say that, and to all those people in those grassroots groups that have been fighting this uphill battle, thank you for the work that you've been doing and continue to do, right? And it's amazing to me that the numbers are so high for groups that are so small within communities, right? And the numbers are so high in places like Chicago because civilians are getting hit. You know, people who don't even have anything to do with gang violence are the ones getting hit. Lainey says, I'm going to sit this one out. No, go ahead, Lainey. Chime in, chat. Please chime in if you have thoughts. This is not, it's a dialogue. It's not a monologue. We're not sitting up here on our thrones telling you how to think.
Speak for yourself. I'm on a throne.
So let's bring some levity to it, right? We're not going to jump into the can women be so. I think that's going to be more volatile than the gun issue. So I was surfing the internet the other day, guys, and I was just looking at stuff, here and there, to and through, looking for topics for the show. And it dawned on me, I was like, it's a great topic that I think is becoming weirder and weirder as I get older, and or as you guys get older and I keep regenerating, is the concept of boundaries, right? So that video I sent you guys, it's from a woman, a clinician who's done outreach for many years, and she gives her personal account on how setting healthy boundaries has benefited her in her life. And I'm a huge advocate of that. But I wanted to talk to you guys about our own personal boundaries and what that's looked like. For me, one of the things that I had to do, if I'm relating my own experience to it, is learning to set a boundary for myself, from myself, right? I have to set boundaries where I don't allow certain things into my life. It's not on the other person, right? I have to go, we've seen this before. Put the line there, and you hold yourself accountable because you're not gonna be able to stop that behavior. But one thing I've had to set a real boundary with in regards to other people is emotional vampires. Have you heard this term before? People who have come into your life only to drain you of your good energy force with conflict and anger and constant sadness. We're talking about, and I'm an empathic person. I'm empathetic, right? I want to help people, but I know that there are some people who are either by choice constantly in chaos, or they can't help their own life circumstances. And I am more empathetic towards those people. But at the same time, I've had to set a boundary where it's like, I can't come meet you at 4:00 in the morning. I can't loan you $200 for the third time. Like, I got my own family to feed. What do you guys think about the concepts of boundaries, and how do they apply to you?
Boundaries are definitely needed. And if you are going to set boundaries for yourself, you have to have, depending on what it is, you got to have some type of discipline with yourself. Mm-hmm. I had to learn discipline within certain things. Right now, as far as me like setting boundaries, we just went on like a mass blocking spree recently. So
what happened?
I went on like a mass blocking spree. I blocked like a lot of people, like on everything. And that was me setting my boundaries, because you get tired of it. You get tired of being taken advantage of. You get tired of being in that space. You get tired of listening to people tell you the same old fucking stories over and over again. And yeah, I'm blocking you. Sorry.
Bex woke up and it was like, today's your day.
Yeah, and that's legit how it happened too. I'm like, okay, I can't do this no more. Block.
Oh, he left you again? Guess where you're going?
And you're not listening. You're not listening to my advice. So no, block. You're getting blocked.
What about you, Sidzi?
Oh man, for me, boundaries took me a long time to figure out. Man, at some point in my life when I was younger, I got caught up in the chaos, And a lot of times when you do that, I feel like you end up living in it. You don't know anything else. It takes some, you know, multiple learning lessons, but in my case, it took some really dumb shit happening for me to step back and look at it. So for myself to get out of that cycle that I was in, my first step was basically removing the people in my life, like you said, that were draining my energy, that didn't have my best interest at heart. That if I was going to make a change in what I was going to do, they were still going to try and bring me back down to where I was before. So that was like step number one for me.
Right.
And, didn't have a huge circle to begin with, but when you find your circle that you do have that will be there for you, is very, it feels good, like you feel like you are around people that are going to, you can trust, that care, So that was a big first step for me, was doing that. Just getting away from people that I knew essentially were, I don't want to say they were toxic people, but they were toxic for me.
Right.
Are we those people that you trust? And
Of course, I'm here with you guys every Wednesday night. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, sometimes Sunday.
Nah, man, it's true, man. Because here's the crazy thing about setting boundaries and sticking with it, right? Again, I swing it back to addiction. I have seen myself want to go back into the chaos. Like, here's a for instance for you, right? In regards to blocking someone on Facebook, like going on a mass blocking, like Bex has done. I'll be like, God damn, I miss this fool, man. I miss talking to him, and I know that nothing's probably changed in the 30 days that I blocked this person. And I collapse my own boundary, and I'm just like, well, let me just see what's going on over there. And I, unblock. You never tell a person you unblocked them, because maybe you don't know. They don't know. Maybe they don't know you blocked them. And like, so you just unblock, and they start coming up in your feed again. And I start seeing the same old posts and stuff like that. And then I remind myself, this is where I had to find the other half of it. I have to set a boundary with myself. I can't set a timeline on someone's changed behavior. Like, I'll tell you, like, straight up, like, hey, I can't do this with you anymore. But then it's up to me to hold to that. I cannot allow myself, because of boredom or wanting people to subscribe to the channel, unblocking unhealthy people, because then they start commenting on the videos. I've even had to set boundaries with people on the type of conversations I'll have with them. Like, yo, you and I, you want to talk about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? Good. We can do that. We can talk about food, anything else. Politics, can't go there with you. And the reason I've set that boundary is maybe because of my reaction to some of the things you're saying, like accountability on my side. When you speak, I feel as if though I want to grab your head and just shake it a little bit. And I can't do it. So I have to change it up, And same thing with friggin' as a man, like, I've set some boundaries for myself. I have family members that are females that post some wild shit, Bex. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've jumped on IG and I'm like, yo, what is this? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is this? What are you doing? And the boundary there is two-layered. I ain't saying nothing to you because I know how that conversation is going to go. And two, I have to make sure that I understand that's not my business. And if I don't want to see it, where's that unfollow button? Bam, hold that one and sit back. You know what I'm saying?
I told my grandmother the same thing. Just unfollow, Grandma.
Like, cousin Nook ain't gonna change. You gotta. And it just trips me out too, because I think that's some of the stuff when we talk about like the quote unquote culture war and like the sex war, the war of the sexes. What people really should be doing is exploring their boundaries. Like, where's the line in our communication? Like, a boundary I have with people who have different beliefs than me is like, here's the boundary. Let me set it for you. Now, remember, it takes two of us to get into this heated argument. You do you, knowing that I don't agree. And I'll do me, knowing that you don't agree. And we will agree not to disagree, but not to push on each other, because there's going to be a response. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Bex is like, no.
I was just doing like some little math in my head. Why can't we still agree to like disagree though?
Because there's some things that I think if I put a cap on it, like agree to disagree, there's some things that like we can't agree to just disagree on. And that's why I have to set the boundary with you, because I'm the guy who I believe some things are straight up wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I think some things are like are evil. And like you're not gonna get me to like agree, like, oh, just agree to disagree. Like I was having a conversation about what's going on in the Ukraine right now. And I am of the thinking that civilians tied up behind their back, this is a no-brainer. This is evil, right? Like there's no conversation. So if someone presses me and they're like, well, it's because of the political landscape, and you have to understand that we're trying to protect ourselves from certain things, and America has to be strategic in this. And I'm just like, we're not going to agree to disagree. I'm going to agree that we're not going to talk about this is what it is, because if we can't have a conversation where one of us is wrong, that's the problem. Y'all are about to get me on my preaching thing, right? You can't both be right. You know what I'm saying? That's the greatest lie that people have told each other. Oh, well, I think we're both right. No, one of us is most certainly wrong, and I'm thinking it's on the other side of the table. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to debate that logic. But one thing that I took out of that video as well, is that our boundaries don't just apply to other people in our interaction with, our associates and whatnot. Like, I believe she mentioned applying the same thing to your work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to know what boundaries you need to set in your work life. If the job sounds great, but they're overworking you, you really need to sit back and evaluate, understand how much time or effort you can actually afford to give to that job and still be happy, healthy, like she mentioned, most particularly mentally healthy.
Yeah. I think her story was great in the sense, like, she built that center, for children that were experiencing violence, and then understanding. I think this is something. If I'm being real with you guys, it's something I think about in regards to the Hold Up TV, but in particular with her, she's like, I built this thing, I worked hard to get it off the ground, and I realized that I wasn't the one that should keep running it. You know what I'm saying? And she had to set that boundary because she was just running in circles because she had reached, the plateau of what she's capable of doing, and knowing that you can't do something or you shouldn't do it. I don't want to put it on your ability. She probably could have gone on for the rest of her life fighting the way that she was to keep that thing alive, but you shouldn't be the one doing it. And I think that's takes a great, a lot of understanding and perspective and being able to do that.
So are you telling me that you're not going to run the Hold Up TV anymore, and you're just like giving it away to Cincy? Is that what we're doing?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I will die with the deed of like the controlling percent. Y'all can try to vote me out, and I'll have the entire. Then we'll get into some real gun violence. I'm like, is the entire board here right now? I just want to make sure you're all in the same place, right? No, but it's one of those things I think about. But it is one of the reasons why I was grateful to begin this endeavor with Cincy. I couldn't do Request Box Live the way I was doing it. Like when we first started, that was a Monday through Friday thing. 2.5 hours, 4 hours. I got a regular job. I got a family. I'm like, I can't do this. But I wanted to bring someone in that cared about it as much as I did. And that was a boundary I have to set. You don't think for a second when Cincy spinning, I don't want to turn my mic on and be like, yo, it's your boy Steve. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yo, no, there's a reason I need to take Friday off. My son wants my attention. I have to set that boundary with myself, When I was sick in bed, that was the hardest thing I had to do, was just listen. Not because I didn't believe in his ability, but because it's like, I got to do something. I'm like, he's got this. Yeah, he's got it, man. Those were the days, Carmen. But let me make it more specific and narrow the scope a little bit, and this would be something for you, Bex. I feel as if though in relationships, diminished ones or ongoing ones, whether they're romantic or not, boundaries become more and more important because also it can help you preserve a relationship or it can expose a relationship for what it is. You know, what do you think, Bex?
You said it can help preserve it or do what?
Or expose it for what it really is. So in certain instances, I think when someone loves you, they'll understand the boundary as long as it's like a sincere boundary. It can't be a boundary like shut the fuck up. That's my boundary. That's not that's not reasonable. But if it's a boundary like, hey, I don't like the way you talk to me, and it could very well be that I'm oversensitive, but there are things that I think you should recognize in your language, right? Like I think those are the healthy boundaries to set. And then I think setting healthy boundaries can expose a bad relationship where a person just keeps pushing the line.
I legit just had to have that conversation with an ex or whatever, and it wasn't the fact that I didn't like the way he was talking to me. It was the fact that I was like expressing myself and expressing my feelings, and I'm asking you these questions.
They got her. Bex will be right back, yeah. While we're waiting for Bex to come back, you want to chime in on this, Cincy?
No, I actually 100% agree with what you just said, because at the end of the day, whether you're in a relationship with someone for 10 days, 10 months, or 50 years, you always need your personal space to something.
Right.
Whether it be just, let's be real. I think every guy that's been in a relationship has hid in the bathroom for a long time, way longer than they needed to. So it's like, fuck these kids. I don't want to talk to you either. Like, I'm gonna take about 45 minutes and just chill. like, but that's for you. And sometimes you gotta understand that you need that time. To correlate that to a relationship, you also, if you want that to be respected about you, you have to respect that of another person too.
Yeah.
So, like you said, if you create boundaries and the relationship isn't good, it'll crumble.
Right.
A lot of times that's because it's based on superficial things, time, attention, and when you're not right next to each other, it kind of falls apart, or you start questioning trust, this and that. But a solid relationship, I've seen it firsthand with my own parents. Like they have their own boundaries. They know what their together time is and what each one of them need to do. And at least from my eyes, it's been successful. So.
Yeah, no, and I think it's hard sometimes because people when you set a boundary with someone, like if it's not clear, then they'll personalize it, and even if it's clear enough, they'll still personalize it. One thing I do is I try to respect the fact that even though I feel as if though I'm a great advice giver and I'm a truth teller, didn't nobody ask me my opinion on everything going on in their freaking life, right? And if a person has made it clear, whether verbally or their reaction to the things I say, I'm like, okay, this person does not want me infringing upon their life. I'm not putting it on them. Like, it is clear that my advice is not welcome here, and I gotta respect that. I think some people just don't want to take a look at it when someone is setting a boundary. And the tripped out thing, you're right, because it goes both ways. You got to learn you got to read the room, man. You got to learn to read the room, man. And I don't ever want to be in a place again where I'm not seeing that someone set a boundary. I'll give you for instance that's going to make everyone laugh at my expense. I was dating a girl long before Mrs. Holdup came in and saved me from my ratchet self. And I was like, oh man, I really like this girl. And I was still thinking that it's romantic to text someone every day. And then I was like, yeah, why doesn't she text back? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is it always like 3 hours later or something like that? And instead of having the appropriate response, which is why I guess she'll get back when she gets back, I was just like, yo, what's up with you? What's good? And then the boundary was set like, yo, I'm not your dog. You just because you text me doesn't mean I need to respond. Now, my etiquette is different than that. You text me, and unless I'm working or something like that, I'm like, what's good? And I hit you right back. But I took that and I was just like, well, you and I are done, but I'm gonna respect your boundary. You know, yeah, you got to learn from these things, man. That's you have to learn.
For sure.
Now, I think we lost our sister for good. Let me just check on her for a sec. And shout out to everyone that's still here in Green Room and everyone over on Twitch. We appreciate the support. Obviously, you know, it's the birthday week. We're going to have a lot of stuff cracking off this week on Request Box Live. That's why I'm not going to go past 12 o'clock tonight, because I know tomorrow, you know, we're back. We're back on the party grind. And let me see, hit her up in Discord. Yeah, any other thoughts on it? Anyone want to share their experiences or anything in the chat in regards to the topic? If not, we'll just go ahead and move right along. But I want Bex to be able to come back and tell her story when she comes back. So did you watch the video about women being
Well, first off, where'd they find this guy at? You know what? I mean, everybody's yeah, I watched it.
What were you? So the topics, folks, it's a video that Jovi shared with us. It's a reaction video by Playback to social commentators, actually gamers. One of them is well known for playing 2K, and the headline, the thumbnail for it is it okay for women to be fat and lazy? And in the video, the substance of the video, there's a guy speaking on the Bethany show, that woman from the Housewives in New York, and he, I think, was the most thoughtful person who's ever chimed in with his viewpoint, which was that, you know, men aren't attracted to overweight women. And it's not overweight. No, he was specifically talking about obese, and he was more specifically talking about morbidly obese people, and that it's not okay for a woman or a man to be obese. But somehow this video in that conversation, it strictly became about women. So I guess me and Cynthia are left up here and to deal with this on our own. Chat, chime in. Is it okay? And if you're a woman, you can reverse the question. Is it okay to not be attracted to someone who is fat, who is obese? What do you think, Cincy?
I mean, I think everybody is attracted to who they're attracted to. But I didn't understand, I guess, from my vantage point, are we bashing bigger women, or was he backing bigger? Like, you know, there's something to be said. Okay, so when they say, you know, you got to be attracted to personality, you know, things like that, that means a whole lot.
Right.
But what he was really saying is, even if you go past a woman's size or a man's size, either way you want to look at it, you still have to be attracted to that person.
Yeah.
Now, the part of the whole conversation that threw me off was when they basically were making a case for it to be okay to be fat and lazy. Right. Those are two very different things. You are putting a stigma on being big, being with laziness. And I'm not sure that's the same thing. I would not like to be around a lazy woman, but she doesn't have to, you know, eat perfect every day. She doesn't have to go to the gym. I don't care. I care more about her being lazy than than the looks of the person, if I'm being honest. Like, and I don't associate those two things together. Now,
Yeah.
you very well could become obese because you're lazy, but just because you are obese doesn't mean that you're lazy.
Yeah. No, and I think and that's the problem with social media, with YouTube, all these things. These are clickbait videos, right? And this is another issue that I think is used as a dog whistle in certain groups, which is you can't sum it up in total. So, okay, if you're talking about a lazy woman, and we're just talking about a woman being lazy, not the woman I want to be with, right? I can understand someone who has a relaxed approach to life, and they don't take very many things serious except for the things they need to take serious, and they still get their business handled. But I most certainly wouldn't want to be with a woman who is just like, I ain't doing nothing. Right? And I'm just like, okay, well, you enjoy that endeavor. Now, when it comes to, am I attracted to someone who's fat or someone who's obese? I have dated and been with women who were on that side of the spectrum, and I will say it was their personality, right, that won me over. And I was just like, oh man, I really like spending time with you. And both of those situations, I think that both of those people were dealing with low self-esteem, and so there were times where maybe I could have been more sensitive, but it was never like, hey, get your ass up and go to the gym. It was more like, I want to do these things to make myself feel better. And then maybe I just wasn't emotionally mature enough to know when to back off, where it's like, yo, you said you wanted to go to the gym. Let's get it. Let's get it. And you push the person too hard. But if we're just looking at the letter of the question, yes, you are allowed to be fat and lazy if that's the choice you want to make, especially by the definitions we're all living by today. But should you be, is the real question. Should you remain obese? Well, no, your health and your life depend upon you not being that. And like, should you? I don't think so, but I don't understand all the circumstances that have made you that way. I will say this though, if it's not a thyroid issue, if it's not because of medication, and your fat and your metabolism are still working in a way where you can go to the gym and save your life, I would say you should not want to remain that way if you have the opportunity to change. But this was one of those things where I think it was more just like, and here's the ironic thing. I like playback. I like those two guys. But as we're watching this, I'm looking at the fellow to the left, right?
Yep.
And I'm just like, I don't know what your life journey is, young man, and I'm not going to speak ill of you because I like your content. But if he would have strayed too far right or left on this topic, I would have been like, I think maybe you have an implicit bias that you don't want to deal with, right? And I know that they were defending the gentleman who was up on stage, and they were like, he's not calling, saying that the young black lady who stood up was obese. He's saying, no, you're not obese. He's just saying that guys aren't attracted to it. But at the same time, it's like, you gotta keep your street clean a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You can't be the thing you're talking about. If you get what I'm saying. In fact, I might just, if you guys want to go check it out, like again, they're bigger content, they're bigger channel. I'll go to blows with anyone since you know what I'm saying. It's because you're up here. Normally, I'd just be like, bow, I shoot the shot. But yeah, you can be that way. You shouldn't remain that way. That's why I'll take a hard stance. I would want you to save your own life.
I definitely agree on the health bit of it.
You
I'm
heard
not
it.
sure.
He hates fat people. You heard it. You heard him say it. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm cool on the health side of it, but guess what? Like, I'm not fit, so I'm not about to make any judgments against anybody. Damn, I can't believe they left us two up here to talk about this topic.
I know this was a clear setup, right? As
that was a setup. But you know what? I'll say this: there are women who wear it very, very well, who understand their size and still clean up very nice, and those women are attractive.
Yeah.
that's my opinion. So I don't,
You read, read the chat.
yeah, I shouldn't have looked down.
No, I welcome
No,
back.
thank God.
Yeah, I'll say this, but I'll say it with my chest, right? So you know what the reaction is people want when they put this type of content up? They want us to get into the conversation, which has become popularized, of the scale of 1 to 10, right? So the conversation they want us to have is someone who is obese, or more specifically, this question is a woman who's obese, and we'll say a man too, for sure. Let's keep it equal. Can they still consider themselves tens? See, that's where they want us to go. That's the clickbaity part of it. And I'm glad Bex came back just in time to answer that question. Go ahead, Bex.
I fucking hate technology.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm just irritated. Right when I was talking about that boy, like, really? Just everything just wants to cut off? Okay. That's the devil. That's the devil. But anyway, we on Jovi's topic?
Yeah. Did you want to finish your story though about the boundaries?
No, fuck him.
The boundaries have spoken.
Wait, hold on for a second. So we got DT Dub TV, and man, y'all call everything bashing. Okay, let me deal with this one. All right. So Berlin, in this life, right? In the use of the English language, there is a cadence and there's a delivery and then there's a purpose in which people say things. So I'm not sure which one of us said the word bashing, but I will say this, right? You cannot always hide behind the fact of I'm allowed to say things, because if your cadence and your context suggests that you are taking a stance and you are then denigrating other people based off of your stance, that is bashing, right? It's a different thing to express your opinion and say, I personally am not attracted to obese people. That's not bashing. That's stating an opinion and your personal preference. It's a different thing to say, use a big bitch, you ain't never going to have love in your life. I'm just using that as an example. That's bashing. And we have to be mature enough to call it like it is. You know what I'm saying? And there are people who are clickbait. Oh, Berlin's just said, bro, I just realized I'm watching in the past. Never mind. And that whole soliloquy was pointless. So my question stands to you, Bex. You know, we're talking about can women. I don't want to keep saying this. Is it okay for women to be fat and lazy? What did you think of the video? Did you watch it?
I watched it. First of all, who's Bethany? Like, who gave her a talk show? Where's Bethany at? But taking care of yourself is important. Period. That first girl in the audience wasn't even obese. Like, that part tripped me out. Her saying, but I feel like I'm obese. I have all this confidence, but you say that you feel like you're obese. And sis, he wasn't even talking to you. Sit down and shut up. And it made me mad because two of the females that stood up and was trying to offend obesity, Black women, can we please stop defending obesity? It made me upset because two of the women who stood up and was trying to defend obesity were Black women. We're dark-skinned Black women at that. That's what got to me. That's what made me upset. And like, he wasn't even talking to y'all. Shut up and sit down. Like, it was really cringe to me. Like, you making us look bad. Like, just sit down and chill out. And the audience was lying for real. Like, stop lying and trying to say that looks don't matter, because they do. They know they do. That's the first thing that's going to attract you to a person. You're going to see the person first. So I don't even know why they were lying to themselves like that. But what was your original question?
No, it's perfect. You heard it here. Bex hates fat people. See, so you guys got to cancel Bex and Cincy. I'm on your side.
I don't hate fat people, but we need to stop defending people being unhealthy. That's weird. That's fucking weird.
No, it is strange, and I think one of the things that's interesting, because I said, what people really want to have a conversation about when they bring this up is the whole 1 to 10 scale. Can bigger women still consider themselves a 10? Can bigger men still consider themselves a 10? Because if the question is it how you feel about yourself or is it how you look, then how are we rating people?
I don't fuck with the whole scale type thing or whatever. I do believe that there's somebody out there for everybody.
Right.
People like what they like. So, I mean, can we really put things on a scale when different people like different things?
Right.
A 10 to me could be, I don't know, like a 5 to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, in the immortal words of the great prophet Kevin Samuel. No.
I knew it. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
I mean, again, if for me personally, if it's about your health, we can't pretend like obesity is okay. Now
Yeah.
that's just it's not good for the person, but I don't know, man. I'm just saying, like, the guy on the left, one of the commentators, the guy on the left, right? Is nobody gonna address that? Like, at some point, like,
No, he didn't have any room to say anything. Like that's what it's hard to pass judgment either way. But if you fit the description of the same woman that you don't like, that makes no sense on your own. Like, what are you doing? Because basically, when he said that, what I took from it was he has a problem with women being that way, but not himself or a man being that way.
yeah,
That's not fair because the conversation should go both ways. Is it okay to be an overweight man? Is it okay to be a lazy man? We know the answer. I think everybody's in agreement that laziness is not attractive regardless. But
I mean, unless it's like a lazy situation after the club, because maybe you're both a little inebriated and you're like, this is the maximum effort we got right now.
yeah, but I'm not going to associate doing it off the hen with your personality Monday through Friday. That's all I'm. God damn it.
With a little lazy love, you get to a certain point in your life where you're like, well, this was good. I'm glad we didn't exert too much energy.
Can I jump in and say this real quick too? I love to cook, so I'm like the wrong person to be like, hey, let's go to the gym and lose some weight together. Because like I'm gonna make you meals every week. I cook with butter, all the good shit, buttermilk. You're gonna put on some weight. If you went and had a belly before you came here, you're gonna leave.
One way or another, you leave Cincy's house with a bigger belly, whether it be in 9 months.
Hey.
Wow.
Oh shit.
So we could all land on this. I think, Bex, you had a great take on it, which is stop trying to defend something that is negatively impacting people. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time,
Our community.
yeah. Diabetes and all that stuff. You can't blame that on the white man. I mean, I'm sure you'll find a way.
If you give me a week to research the topic.
Since he comes back with a kufi on, and he's like, all right, I'm back. Bam.
We got it right here. We ain't gotta go there.
It is a complicated topic, D, for sure. It's a complicated topic. But that's why you guys come to Dope Dynamics, so we can talk about these things, and you don't have to think about it after this week. I mean, the last thing I'm going to say on this, though, right? We got to resist the clickbait culture. I want you to like, share, and subscribe our videos and tune in for ethical journalism, where we report the most consistent viewpoints. But at the same time, when I looked at this video, I was like, okay, this is 100% falling in line with the reason why the red pill is in the state that it is. Because if you're not presenting a solution, right, the next part of the video would be, hey, how are we going to help these obese people? What level of care can we help them with? And then someone will naturally reply that it's not my responsibility. Well, you kind of made it your responsibility having an opinion. You're taking a stance on it. So are you just a speaker box? Like, let me know what type of channel I'm tuning into. I'm not talking about these two young brothers, because I know in the end they do it on the other. They're not red pill. They go at them, and they go at all types of idiocy. And again, to the brother on the left, I know he was doing a parody of Kevin Samuels. That's why he kept doing this thing here, and he's like like the high value man. But it's insane, man. And remember, ladies, you come to Cincy's house, you can get a good cooked meal, right? You know, he's cooking with butter and milk. That's what he said. Any final thoughts on this one before we get off this uncomfortable ass freaking topic? Bex, you left me and Cincy up here, and we're just being as political as we can be. We're like, yeah, so
neither one of us chose this topic.
Yeah.
Why were you guys uncomfortable?
Because there's no more preyed upon people than men right now, and it is not safe to be a man because masculinity is under attack. Shout out to DT Dub TV. Go to his channel to get all the truth. DaVinci's gonna tear my ass off for that one. No, because it's like I know why I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable because a portion of me is looking at this topic going, no matter how I say it, someone's going to take what I'm saying the wrong way. And at the end of the day, I'll care about that for like 30 minutes, but this is going to remain up on the internet.
Do you think they're going to take it the wrong way because you're a man?
Yeah. yeah. Because we live in a space now where some people believe unless you are a part of that space, you cannot have a critique on it. So, you know, the big and beautiful community, I am not a part of, right? So it can seem like I'm fat shaming, or it can be perceived as if though I'm being bigoted, even though that word's not really truly applicable in the situation. And it makes me uncomfortable a little bit because a part of me just wants to let off on the subject. And I'll do that now since you pushed me. If you are obese, I have no moral right to tell you not to be obese. But if you are obese and you are a part of my life, I am telling you as a friend, brother, and comrade, I do not want you to die. I would have the same conversation for heroin addicts. And it's amazing to me that no one has this type of philosophy when it comes to people who are strung out on crack and whose doom is just as imminent as an obese person. Like, we're not saying empathize with the heroin addict and understand that this is their choice. No, if anyone ever tells you some dumb I said I wasn't going to curse this episode. Apparently I let off last week. There was too much cursing on my part last week, but we just wouldn't apply the same thinking to that. We see someone struggling with addiction, we never just go, oh, that's just beautiful. No, we say we need to help this person save their life. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to obesity, especially childhood obesity. I hate when people put these pictures up of these kids with these rolls on their arms. Yeah, that's cute, but that kid needs some physical play. Help save that baby's life, you know? Get to your comfortable weight and make sure I hope that comfortable weight isn't putting too much stress on your heart. I'm eating salads. I've been eating salads all week since I've been throwing up on my food. You know, I'm trying to live a little bit. I want you to live too. So if you're going to get mad, get mad. I ain't scared. Matter of fact, F it. Come at me. I am a chauvinist. I'm a woman-hating madman. That was your plan all along, wasn't it, Bex? Get me this.
I just wanted you to get there, you know?
Thanks for chiming in since you left me out there.
Yeah, I mean, you felt attacked and you wanted to say it.
Hold on. Lainey has something.
Yeah.
As a woman who is larger and tries to lose weight, hearing that I'm overweight daily is less healthy for me than my weight. Okay, now that's an interesting point to bring into it. So using that statement Lainey just said, hearing it every day, how would you prefer to be encouraged if it's something that you are choosing to tackle, Lainey? And that question goes to the listening audience. How would you prefer people bring it up? or support you in that journey? I'm sorry, since I cut you off. Go ahead, brother.
I was just gonna mention before we get any replies back on that that's very similar to what the lady in the video on the previous topic said, that you have to have your boundaries and what you're willing to hear from other people and do for yourself, because your mental health and part of your wellness is much larger than just going to the gym and eating a certain way. So I mean, I feel where that's coming from, because that could be tiring, exhausting, to hear negative things repeated to you. So
Yeah, but I think there's a distinction to be made between someone just telling you negative things, or if you asked someone for help, right? Or like, so there's a difference between like someone constantly telling you you're fat, right? Or saying, putting you down over your weight, versus someone who you've invited into the conversation and trying to help hold you accountable, because there are similar behaviors again with addiction. Like if I'm saying to Sensi, man, I need help to get off this shit. And when I start to struggle, I make him the focal point of my anger after asking him for his help. Then you need to be more clear on what help looks like to you. Laney said, man, too much to text. Let's see what DT Dub TV has to say. The thing is, there's possibly no way for anyone to bring it up without a woman to get offended. And I say that if a man was to try to put it in a way for her. Okay.
You know what? I hear where he's coming from with that one. I think the bigger issue, well, I'm not going to speak for them, but to me, like, it seems like the bigger issue is how many people are giving words of encouragement or, just there to listen about their journey, versus how many times do people just tell a person that they're overweight.
Okay.
And, it's kind of like one of those things, I feel like, where by the time someone offers the helping hand or the listening ear about, what you're going through, you've already been attacked and reminded about that so many times that the person who does maybe give at least some empathetic response to that, it's still going to feel like an attack. That's what you've been trained to feel like.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Because let me throw another wrinkle in, and I want to hear from both of you guys. So let's remove it from, say, a single person. Does a mother who's overweight or father who's overweight have an obligation to their children to live a healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, they do, but it's funny because not all the time, but it seems like those are the people that are coming for, the kids or the grandkids that are picking up weight. My grandmother does this to me, like she'll comment, oh, Becky, you're getting a little fluffy over there. And I'm like, Grandma, I'm not going to say it to her, but in my mind, I'm like, honey, have you looked in the mirror? Like you're the fluffiest person here, Grandma. But, and I don't know if it's like a generation thing, old people don't have no filter. I don't know, but you don't have to tell me. Like, I know what's going on over here. Like, you don't have to remind me. You don't have to make suggestions. I know. Don't tell me. Mind your business, okay?
mind your business unless you're invited to the conversation, right?
Exactly.
What do you think, Cincy? Do parents who are struggling with their weight have an obligation? And when we say struggling with weight, I want to be specific, because the video was talking about obesity. It wasn't just talking about being overweight. It was talking about like being obese. Do they have an obligation to their children to try to make a life change?
I mean, as a mother or a father or a parent, whichever one you want to choose, you have an obligation to take care of your children. um, if we're saying that, obesity is unhealthy, then you're making the decision. If it's not health related, you are making the decision to not be there for them as long as possible. At the same time, I mean, how long are they responsible to be there? Like once they become an adult, is that then your responsibility? Like if I guess what I'm saying is, do you have to feel that same way the whole time? Because by the time you're grandma and not mom, it's not your responsibility necessarily anymore. You did your job. I mean, and a mom and dad's job never ends, but like from there, that's their, that's the child, the adult now on
Right.
them. So I don't know. That's a very complex question to me. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you
Go ahead.
are we talking about parents of obese kids or the parents being
The parents themselves in this hypothetical scenario are all obese, and because then this is, I think this is where the conversation gets complicated, because Divine just asked a question over in Green Room, which was, what about women that feel comfortable with their weight and are happy about it? And welcome in, by the way, Divine. In the conversation of, like, if we're talking about the video and they were talking about obesity, how much culpability, because Lainey brings up a good point. People don't need to be reminded that they're overweight all the time. They don't need to be berated. They don't need to be told in a negative sense or intrusive comments, et cetera, et cetera. But my question, I guess, to further the conversation is there a point where you make a decision, right, that you owe it to someone else? And the only people I could think I would ever owe anything like that to would be my children, right? It would be that wanting to be present in their life. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anyone else. Like, making a decision to make healthier choices, that wasn't for me. 100%. I can go upstairs, smash a whole thing of Oreos right now, and that would be the healthiest choice for my mental health, because it would make me feel really, really good. But not the best decision as a father, because I know that I'm harming my body, and me not being able to be physically present for my children harms them. So yeah.
and Cincy, your reply was how long, like once the kids are grown, like do the parents even have that responsibility anymore? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah. Essentially.
Um, what if we apply that same logic to something else affecting your health, like smoking, for instance?
Right.
Do
Yeah.
you still feel the same way?
Yeah. I mean, if it's your decision to smoke, I mean, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, smoke around your kids or nothing like that. But I mean, you're only obligated, and I'm looking at this very technically, and maybe that's a problem, but you're only obligated to kids for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's your only obligation. Now, whether you look at parenting as something else, like I was kind of leading to, your job's never done.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, shit, I want to live my life. If I want to fucking drink some hen and smoke a mild, fuck it, leave me alone.
And these philosophical questions, because it's like this, man. Like, oh man. So I'm not gonna put this on anyone, but if it starts to impact you, and in your latter years, because it's starting to claim your health and you're dying, is the sentiment still the same? Because those kids will more than likely, hopefully, God willing, be the ones there to help ease your pain and transition. And that's the type of stuff I ask myself. I'm like, do I want to put this on my children? One, financially, and two, to watch me disintegrate. It's a tough one. Hold on for a second. Lainey said, let me put this up on here. Man, y'all make it sound like being overweight is unhealthy, but the fact of the matter is, our bigger people are healthier Then asking person, my blood pressure is normal. I can lift a keg over my shoulder. I don't have diabetes. I'm healthy. The issue with fat is it's not perceived as attractive. Change the narrative. I'm gonna send you the video, Lainey, because again, the gentleman who was talking in the video wasn't talking about people who are overweight. He was talking about obesity. The tagline is, can women be fat and lazy? Because that's what they chose to use to get clicks and views. And that's why I've been trying to like push it towards what was actually said in the video, or at least what that gentleman was saying. And he was talking about obesity. He was talking about being obese. Now, his views are his own views. No one here is trying to say that if you're fat, you're unattractive. I think that is something that people have to deal with on a personal level with the person that's dating them, right? like that's really a conversation between two people. Is the person I'm with attracted to me? You know, am I attracted to them? But the conversation around obesity is one in America that I think is made complex when it's really a question of, is this a health related issue? Is being obese a health related issue? And I would say that it is, you know, scientifically it is. But I think what happens is when we start talking about this, it becomes people stop hearing about, we're talking about wanting to help our loved ones who are struggling with this, if they want our help with conquering it, versus telling a person how to live. Like I said, at the end of the day, you make your own choices. You do make your own choices, and we all have to live with our choices. But when it comes to people in my immediate sphere, if anyone reaches out to me and they say this is something I want help with, and that's the only time I would become involved, then that's when I would partner with them, and try to help them make better decisions if that's what they want. Because I'm not going to be anyone's whipping boy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not. That's the other side of this conversation, which is you wanted my help, but now you don't want my help, right? And so you quarterback this one. How do you want me to help you? Because assume the point that if I say I love you, the word "you're fat" isn't going to come out of my mouth. Assume the point that if I love you, making fun of you because of your weight is not something that's going to happen, right? But if you're asking me for help, then how do I help you? Because I can't be responsible for the things you're struggling with mentally. I can only support you through them, and be there for you. Oh, we know you're not mad at the panel, Lainey. Stop it. We know that. And I like your PFP, by the way. What do you think, Bax? Any final thoughts?
Nope.
Out here. Well, hell, we've been going for an hour and 43. I don't know if I have the wherewithal to tackle critical race theory right now. But if y'all want to get into it, I'll get into it. All right, folks, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up tonight. I want to thank everyone that came through on Green Room. I want to thank everyone that's in here right now. Who we got in here? Courtney, Shahid, brother just told me how to pronounce his name. Abila, Lainey, Dila, Fat Mantis, Divine, Nelly, and Teddy with the PFP of Chris Rock and his jaw pushed to the other side. Shout out to everyone on Twitch. Peace.
Bye.